Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for attending today's webcast. I'm really excited and believe that this will be a great investment of your time. Today, we're focusing in on an exciting technology called Project that is going to help us better understand how to do really effective project management. I'm also very excited that we have a guest on with us today, panelist on with us today, and really talented guy that I'll introduce to you here in just a few moments. If you're here today, you probably have an attitude of wanting to do better, and that's really what we're focusing on. Hopefully you're able to see my screen well, and I'm going to make a little adjustment. So what you'll notice is that we're first displaying the RSA Solutions website. You'll see the address directly in the address bar. This is just the main or home page. The reason that I want to point it out to you is we are striving to constantly have educational opportunities available to you. So for example, I've highlighted Project that we're working on today. You'll notice that there's another webcast coming up on the 23rd for technology that can help you with scheduling and planning. And then on the 9th of March, the very next one is for Planety purchasing and inventory connected to QuickBooks and your front end systems as well. So anyway, lots of things that are coming up. Also, you might notice that we have done a lot of work to our website. If you just scroll from the main page, you'll see the various ways that we're helping customers inside of the woodworking industry. And so you might want to take a look at some of those areas and see if possibly there's a way that we might be able to help you do better. So anyway, that's good. For those of you that are on the webcast today and in the United States that also happen to have W-2 employees, I want to take just a moment and cause your attention to move to one particular thing, and this is called employee retention or ERC. So you can easily access it directly from the solutions drop down, employee retention credit. Why do I want you to know about this? Well, I want your business to do well. If you're doing extremely well, you can invest in your business and probably some of that relative to software. The reason that we are talking about this today is because unlike PPP, where banks were talking about it and helping people, and unlike EIDL, that was really pretty straightforward for any business to be able to do themselves, the ERC program is a little bit more complex. Well, actually, it is more complex and takes some real specialized knowledge. From this web page, you can literally click on the short little video, and I'll explain a few things to you about it, but here's the 5,000-foot view. If you have a business and you have W-2 employees, there's a third leg to the CARES Act passed by Congress for businesses that were affected by the pandemic or the COVID-19. There were some things unique about each one of the programs. My guess is you've probably heard about PPP, which was a great program. You probably or maybe took advantage of it. It was payroll protection plan, and it gave you funds to be able to maintain payroll. And while it initially started as a loan, if you provided the right documentation, it became a grant, so you didn't have to pay it back. You may have even heard about EIDL, which was the second leg of the CARES Act, and that is for small businesses under 500 employees, and it is a long-term, low-interest loan. Downside is you do have to pay it back. Both are pretty interesting programs and helped a lot of businesses, but what is missing is the complexity that came from the third program, and it has now changed 5 times in the process, and it really takes some specialized knowledge. If you go ask your CPA, they're probably going to tell you you don't qualify, which is wrong. Or the amount that they might help you get is probably way less than what you can. So here's what you need to know. You can get up to $26,000 per W-2 employee, and it does not get paid back. You're able to use it for any business expense that you would like within it. So right here on the page, you'll see that there's a nice, easy self-qualify button. This is what I want you to encourage you to engage with after the video. You just try to answer yes if you can to any of the questions, And the company we're partnered with is called ERC Specialists, and they have their own IRS people on staff. They've got a very, very automated system, so don't expect people to be calling you. This is like self-qualified. They give you a range of stuff. If you like that, then they ask you for some documents. They do their review process of it, and they reach back out with final docs to say, do you want to submit this? It does take a little bit of time to get processed through the IRS. This is amending of 941s that you've already filed for quarterly employment. And so it does take a little bit of time, but it's significant money. You got 10 employees, you might get 260,000. You got 20 employees, you might get way more than that, whatever it is. So many businesses are missing out on this. For sure, they paid the banks to be able to help with PPP. They actually made the onboarding for EIDL so easy that you didn't need help. And here, it really is not being funded the way that it needs to. And so I just want to call your attention to that. All being said, let's get on with the webcast today. So one of the things that I would like to do is I would like to introduce you, and I'm going to make the presenter, Mr. Terry Gregory. Just a couple of things about him. I have known Terry for more than 2 decades. He is a trusted friend. He is a super smart guy. He has a heart to be able to help and bless customers, and so I'm proud to be in business relationship and personal relationship with him for sure. And so, Terry, are you able to hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yes, I was.
Nice.
Yes, I can hear you just fine, and I think I just shared my screen with any luck.
Yeah, you did. Thank you very much for that. Could I ask a favor, please? I know that you have a very extensive background in the woodworking industry, just so that those that are in attendance today have an idea of who it is that's sharing this new information to help their business do better. Would you tell us a little bit about your experience?
I'll be glad to, and appreciate you asking the question. But, I started, back in the 70s, I was working for my dad in a cabinet shop. And so he raised me in the cabinet business and along with my 5 other brothers. And so that's how we were raised, building cabinets. We started out hand nailing. I remember just a short little story of my dad. He always used to wear hair gel. And when he was hand nailing, he'd rub that nail through his hair and get a little bit of that gel on it and then drive it into the hardwood frame. It's just a memory that stuck with me my whole life. But anyway, after I got out of high school, I joined the Army and served in the military for a few years, and then I finished college up in Tennessee. And then about that time, my dad asked me if I was in. He asked all of us boys if we were interested in buying the cabinet shop, and I was the only one that said yes. And so I eventually bought the cabinet shop from Dad, and I started taking over the estimating and the job costing. And we introduced, in the first year, I introduced cabinetware. It was the first product I bought. So I could design cabinets because I knew I wasn't much of an artist, and drawing cabinets by hand just was not what I was going to do. And so I bought cabinetware and then started generating a cut list, and it just opened up the doors to so many more things. And then over the years, we transitioned into cabinet vision, and we even tried a few of the AutoCAD based like Microvellum and IMOS. And so we bought a CNC machine, and we just grew the shop, and we didn't really grow it in employees. When I bought the company from Dad, we had, I think, 5 full-time guys. When I partnered with my brother in it several years ago, we were at 7, but we were doing 4 times the volume of cash, and the margins were 32% better than it was when I bought the shop. And it's only because we measured it all. We implemented tools and technology to work faster and to have the knowledge of what we needed to do and when we needed to do it, that, Dad was just never afforded the ability to do that because the technology didn't exist back then. So it was an interesting transition. And then over the years, as I implemented the technology in my own cabinet shop, I was blessed to be able to sell it to other shops. So I represented a lot of the best software programs, and I've sold software in 49 of the 50 states and 44 other countries. There's been a real interesting learning experience, and it's met a lot of wonderful shops and seen a lot of different ways to do things. But the common denominator every single one of our customers had was they just wanted to do better tomorrow than they did the day before. And that was the driver. And so it's been a fun journey.
That's awesome. Thank you, Terry.
And you know, by the way, Sean, you do the introductions and you always talk, but people don't really understand the depth of your experience. And I'd appreciate if you just tell us a little bit about yours as well.
Yeah, well, I'm talented enough to make the introductions, and that's kind of it. I'll introduce myself just real briefly. Sean Mayberry. I'm the owner of RSA Solutions. Got my start in woodworking in 1990. Went to work for a $400 million RTA furniture company as a designer and engineer for them. Did that till the mid 90s, and then got into capital equipment and automation. Provided me opportunities to tour thousands of shops and to travel throughout Europe and Asia, and to be able to see some of the latest and greatest automation technologies. And finally, in the latter part of 2001, I transitioned from equipment sales into the world of software. And so been a nice long journey of just over 20 years here in the space of software, where we try to help our customers do better. So thank you for asking, Terry.
You know, one thing I just want to add on that, Sean, that you're very modest, but you know, in the jobs that we do, we always like to gain customers, but we also want to gain customers that are better off for knowing us, right? And you've got one of the highest margins I've ever seen of customer satisfaction, because you not only sell them a product, but you make sure it's a fit for them. And that's a real important combination that you don't a lot of times get in salespeople, because it's about, I want to sell you something and off to the next. But, you know, I admire the fact that you're in there for the long haul.
Oh, thanks. You know, I think that there's actually two decisions that actually occur. One might be that someone decides to purchase automation, but then they've got to decide that they're actually going to implement it. And so to get them sold enough on the impact that it's going to have for their business, and to help them understand in the early stages of it what kind of investment that they're going to have to make, not only for the software, but also the internal resources and external help to be able to make them successful. So yeah, we don't really want customers that aren't getting better as a result of investment. Isn't that the purpose? I mean, realistically, a human being could do most everything, or many could do that. When we choose to make a purchase of whether it was a CNC machine or whether it's software, that's what we're doing, is displacing human labor in order to be able to automate some of those processes with technology, maybe do it faster, maybe more accurately, maybe provide us with better information, but it really is displacement of human labor. I think it's fair to say that all of us are struggling to be able to have the number of personnel that we probably need to manage the amount of business we have. And so we can either do less business, we can hire people that maybe aren't as qualified and wouldn't be as trustworthy, or we can decide that we want to do really better, and we can choose to automate some of those processes and for sure position ourselves for growth without just having to load up the labor side of the business.
Agree. You know, one thing that I find that amazes me in the shops that you talk with is, I was in a company several years ago in Singapore, and we were talking about engineering solutions, managing projects, managing the accounting systems and so forth. And they were a furniture manufacturer. And they kept coming back to this several times during the meeting is, no, Terry, you don't understand. We're custom. Everything we do is different. Every order we do is different. And I said, hey, I totally appreciate and respect that. But what you have to understand is if you could shut your eyes and I could magically pick up your factory and move it to Washington, D.C., you'd still be a custom manufacturer in Washington, D.C. The only equivalent would change would be your cost of labor and your utilities and your land. That's the only difference. We're all custom manufacturers. The only question becomes is just how custom are you? Do you offer 10 options or 1,000? But we all build unique product. That's what we do.
Yeah, I think that there's been a mindset in the industry, maybe the woodworking community itself has not been quite as quick to adopt to technologies as maybe some of the other industries, whether that's steel or plastics or glass or whatever it is that we might want to do. But for sure, I hear often, oh, I didn't think that would be a fit for me because I'm custom. And so there's really almost every business that we talk to believes that they are custom. And so what is it that makes them custom? Is it because they stamp their company logo inside of a drawer box? Is it because they have infinite size capabilities of whatever their product? Is it that the material selections are vast and broad? But in the end, what we're doing is bidding or winning and getting a sale, and we're then producing those items. But there's a lot that goes on between the process of first engagement or opportunity with a project and to be dealing with it and managing it all the way through processes. And so I'm really looking forward to learning myself a little bit more today about project. And I think it's going to be an amazing blessing to those that joined the webcast.
Well, I hope so. And I hope everyone enjoys our discussion today, because we're going to talk a little bit about projects, and we're going to show, how it processes data through it. But, what I hope everyone gets through this webinar is the same way we're custom manufacturers, it's the same process with custom software. There's not one size fits all. We're used to buying Microsoft Windows, you load it up, and that's my lot in life. Whatever it is what I got to deal with. But that's not the world we're in. You and I both sell and work with software solutions that are customizable, configurable to each custom manufacturer. So it's not a question of, is there 15 fields on a screen? It's, do you need 18 or do you only need 12? Whatever that answer is, that's the software that you need to be presenting every day. It's a hard thing for a lot of people to wrap their heads around, because they're used to, once again, Windows or QuickBooks or whatever it is what it is what it is. But in our world, it's really about adapting and wrapping the technology, the software automation that we use around our customer, not wrapping our customer around our software. So it's a little bit of a different concept, but it allows companies to really work and act and think like they think, not like the software thinks.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Often when I'm engaging with companies in this community, they will often ask, well, what does your software do? And really what matters is what do they need in order to do better? What if they could connect data? What if they had better information? What if it eliminated redundancy? And so that really becomes the whole key to it, is what would make your business better?
Exactly. The other thing I find that it's, all the years we were selling engineering, you get a real easy look at that picture. You see that 3D and you look at all the parts, and you can't help but say, wow, the graphics alone just amaze you. And, especially if you've been in it a while, back in the 80s, when they would do a perspective, it'd be all over the place, and it would be on a yellow or a green screen. It wasn't very impressive. Then we got a little bit of color. Then it got realistic live modeling. So it got better and better and better over the years. But, you know, when you think about project management, you think about data fields on a screen. You open up your accounting system. There's not a whole lot of wow. You know, it's just, there's data fields. Where do I put my data in? But the real wow to project management is not the data you're collecting, it's how you're presenting it. And what are you doing with it? If I have to have if I'm doing a project and one of the steps in the project is I have to have appliance information, cutout specs on the appliances that are in the project, do I want to task a person to do that? To remember to do that, check up on it, make the phone call, hey, or do I want my software to do that? Software automation will do those tasks automatically and will keep asking the question and asking the question until it gets an answer. So the people that's involved in your company are free to do the things that they're good at instead of doing simple phone calls. Another good example, Sean, is how many times do we have people call up and say, hey, can you give me the status of my order? Well, software automation can answer that question and can answer the question before the customer ever thinks to ask it. So you have to analyze and think about what you do every day, what's your interruptions, and how can I use software automation to accomplish that task. So the key people in my organization can be less interruption and be more focused on the projects that they're well paid to do. That's how you win at the end of the day. So,
I agree.
yeah. Anyway, can you? I'm assuming you see the slideshow. Is that correct?
So there's nothing moving, but what I'm seeing is CRM screen. Okay. Now I'm seeing the calendar.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this one now and just open up the program. And we'll talk a little bit about, oops, wrong one. There we go. Now you should be able to see the login screen to projects.
Yes.
Okay. Now, inside of projects, you know, when you think about projects, I can go right here to projects and I can say, okay, here's my projects. And as you can see, I've got them organized in a lot of different ways. But for example, like I can have a project that says, you know, HPL, high pressure laminate. So if I'm doing a project that's required high pressure laminate, it has different checks and balances that I have to run through the factory. There may be, you know, different people I have to confirm with, different order process, different alerts that I want to go to vendors because there's thousands of choices in HPL, not hundreds. So it may be a little different tweak or adjustment on the path. I might have just a simple cabinet factory path, and the cabinet factory can be real simple. I have a opportunity, and then that opportunity is then going to turn to a quote, and then that quote is going to go ahead, and then once it's approved, I'm going to send it out for shop drawings. Then I'm going to do my red lines, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And each task in the project I can put a capacity and a demand on it. So if I have let's say a capacity of 4 bids a day, and all I can do is I do a bid, and I know the demand is 2 hours, that tells me exactly how many I can get done a day, and when do I need to schedule them throughout my calendar. So I have the ability to look at capacity of the capacity of the stage, and demand of each task on that stage. I can set dates and so forth and so on to when does it need to start, when does it need to stop, how many buffer days do I want to put between the stages. So a full project management system is fairly easy to manage, but it's also one small component of the thought process. Because you know we know companies that started out with like Microsoft projects, which manages the project. And then they buy some CRM system to manage their contacts. And then they have a separate Outlook calendar to manage appointments. And then they have a separate system to manage deliveries. And then a separate system to manage quotes. So You can run islands of information, but in projects, it addresses all of those components in one system. So if you look back at the main screen, it's got a company-wide chat. So whether you have 5 or 50 users, it doesn't really matter. You can open up the chat window and you can set up groups based on sales, production, or projects, or whatever you want, and you can automatically send a chat out to a specific group. So those that need to know when they need to know it. So it makes it real easy for communication in a group or company-wide. Of course, it also has a calendar. You can have a company-wide calendar so anybody can log in and look what's going on in the company, but you also can have every member of your organization their own personalized calendar. So with the right admin rights, you can log in and see when your managers are there, when they're not there, where they have appointments, what projects they're working on, et cetera, and you can view them in a number of different ways, in a list view, calendar view, week, month, year, whatever you choose to do. So it gives you the opportunity to really set dates system-wide. So once again, everybody that needs to know when a project's ready, what's going to be happening with it, or a company-wide event, they automatically know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the next big thing is contacts. And the reason contacts are kind of important, when you run a project, who's the project for? And of course, that's a customer. So if I want to filter this over and just look at my company, I can take a look at my companies. So now I can click on any given company I want, and I can see there's the company, and then I can see who works for that company. So it automatically can track one or hundreds of employees that work for the organization. So once again, when I'm doing a project, I now assign the company that I'm working for. You know, I can assign the architect that's going to be involved. I can assign the general manager that's going to be on site. I can assign all those people, and they're in my contacts for the next project and the next project. So now I'm using software automation to intelligently manage my contacts. And I can sort and filter and look at this any number of ways, but at the end of the day, when you're doing the project, you have everyone that you work with in one central place. Makes no difference if it's an architect, if it's a general manager, if it's the owner of the company, if it's the field delivery staff. If they're in this system, they're accessible to your project, and then you can task them automatically with tasks that are related to the project. You, of course, also can look at contacts the same way. You can look at it in list view and sort it any number of ways. You can also look at it in map view. So I can look at all my contacts in a geographical region and see where they're all at. I can click on any given one of them and see down here exactly where it's at. I can also even map routes. So if I want to go visit 4 or 5 of my customers, I can put a start point, put a stop point, and our system automatically links to Google Maps, creates the map for you, sends it to your phone. So it's really about trying to make our lives easier. It's using data to work intelligently, so I don't have to guess how far a customer is or how many customers I can go see. I can see right there how many vendors are close to my customers. So if I put in my vendors, I put in my customers, I put in my employees, I put in their architects and the general contractors and so forth. Now I know just how tightly grouped individuals are. So if I need to go visit my general contractor and realize the architect's 3 blocks away, I may want to drop in and make that phone call as well and say, hi, how you doing? I wanted to introduce myself. We worked together on this project. So it just builds better customer relations. So when you think about one, go ahead.
I'm going to stop you for just a minute. I'm just trying to imagine, you know, one of the challenges that I think sometimes we face when we're sharing things that are new to people is for them to get like a, why is he telling me this? What's the very purpose? And so I'm going to make a statement and you correct me with a little bit of accuracy. So what we're looking at here in Project is a system that can help us manage, do the CRM, the customer relationship management, all the contacts and those kind of things, that can help us with estimation, can help us actually, once we have the sale, can help us understand our capacities, manage our tasks and schedules, and have everything in a singular system. Is that remotely close?
Well, that's really a good statement. But I would add just a little bit to it is when you think of projects, and once again, it could be I'm doing a 5-story apartment building over down the street. And inside of that apartment building, I not only have the cabinets that I'm building, but I also know who's the architect involved, who's the general contractor, who's all that, who's the people, who's the field installers. Once that information is gathered, and we all know it's gathered somewhere, if it's in this master projects system, you can use it again and again and again. But the other factor is you can use the technology and projects to automatically alert them. So it's not just about the project manager managing the project. It's the project manager working with the automation tools to let the software help manage the redundant, easy tasks. Does that make sense?
Yep, perfect. Thank you.
For a good example, that would be is if I want to alert the field installers 5 days prior to delivery, I always want to send them a reminder. Now, I can count on me to do that, or I can count on the software to do that. So I can go ahead and write an alert just by clicking the alert button right here, and I can pick who wants to get an alert, what the message says, and what triggers it. So once that date hits that 5-day window, the email message or text message, whatever I choose, is automatically sent to those that I want to get. And once again, without just being redundant, that's really what software automation is about. It's not just collecting the data, but using the data so I don't have to work as hard. I don't have to remember as much. Because I can put a reminder in Outlook, hey, remember to do this. But with projects, I don't even need the reminder. The system does it automatically.
Very nice.
So, you think about even in sales, and a lot of project managers, they've already got the project and now they're managing it through. But inside of projects, it's got a really nifty tool for the sales guys to start tracking how many opportunities walk in the door to them, how many projects do they know that are coming down the street that I want to make sure I get to bid. Projects has an excellent CRM system that will allow you to enter those projects and track them right as they go through. So as it moves from qualified over to a proposition, drag and drop it, the numbers automatically change, the dates change, and now I have an opportunity to win that. If I close the deal and it's won, I drag it over here. These are my won projects, and I know exactly what I'm doing with it. So it's a real simple method for salespeople to really understand, owners to really understand how many opportunities walk in the door, how many do I win, how many do I lose, and what affected that process. How many are waiting on quotes? So once that's done, I can also go over here and take a quick look at the opportunities. I want to do a quote. And of course, I can create new ones or open up existing ones. And so if I create a new quote, where's it getting this information from, Sean? It's reading it right outside of its own system. So here's all the contacts. And I can just pick an existing customer, or I can just search. And there's all my contacts. And then what's the date of the quote? What kind of terms do I want to assign? Now, I'm going to pause right there for a second and talk a little more about out of the box versus customization. This is a good screen to think about, for example. We all quote different methods. lineal foot, by the box, percentage of materials and labor, really doesn't matter, but we all do it different. Very seldom is it the same way. Some people import from spreadsheets. Other people used to import from engineering systems. Other people like to just guess, and then they hope for the best at the end. But however they do it, it's out of the box. We can configure a bidding method. But if you see, once again, 10 fields on that screen, and you think for a minute and say, I really want to know the building manager of the project, whatever that's called. And we go over here and call it additional contacts. We have project manager, so forth. But if I need to rename that, or if I want to add another field called building manager, that's just a simple customization for us. You put in the request, we add the field for it, and we can now have building manager as a field that's important to your company, nobody else. So that's how we customize it. And you can customize reports, fields, dashboards, however you want them to look in any method, any manner. The only limitation really is time, money, and effort. You could spend thousands of dollars and I can turn that screen into a rainbow. Click pink and it does this, click blue, it does that. If that's really what you want to do. But if you want to say, I just need a little custom report, an hour's worth of time, $100 later, now you have a custom report. So the biggest limitations we find in customization really is the end user. What's your vision? What do you really want to do? Most people start here and then over the course of a couple of years grow. I want to tie in my phone system. I want to tie in my website. So whenever I get a contact from the website, it automatically populates right into my CRM. And then I can automatically do a quote. That's using software automation to make our lives better. So anyway, I'm going to finish up this quote, and I can just go to an order line and say what I want to build. I can pick, for example, like a standard base cabinet, and I can pick my options, change it, modify it, change the cost, anything that I want to do. Every customer can have its own discount rates. So if I pick customer A, he gets list price. If I pick customer B, he gets 5% off automatically just by picking the correct process. It also can set up defaults. So whenever I'm doing a project, I can set my defaults on the project. Once again, these are all customizable. So if I want to do the project out of high pressure laminate and I want to charge a delivery, or I'm going to install it and deliver, and then I want the hardware to be a 110-degree European hinge with full extension tracks, I can set those defaults so every cabinet I pop into the bid automatically defaults to that spec group. I can also have the ability to import files. So if I want to add the products in out of my catalog that are all customizable in size, or I just want to upload a file, I can go over here to my desktop, pick my Cabinet Vision file, import the order. Now I've got the Cabinet Vision cabinets in here as well, automatically sized and configured right out of their ORD file. You can do the same with Microvellum and IMOS, as long as I have the 2020 is another example. As long as I have the files that give me nomenclature, and in my product catalog I match that, I've won the day. Now I can estimate it however I choose to estimate, add parts, add materials, add any special things I want to add to it, and then see if I win the job. I can also assign phases to it. So if I want to break the order up, I've got 5,000 cabinets in this, and I want to break them into 5 groups, 5 phases of 1,000 cabinets each, and then the quote's still for all 5,000, but now I'm going to schedule my release for the 5 groups. So once again, quoting allows me to do that. The quoting allows me to think about how do we really want to build it. Even though I'm not in the manufacturing arena, I've got to manage that project of how I'm going to release it to the shop. This gives you the tools and the technology to do that. Make sense? Okay. The next area I'll show you is it's got a full document manager. And, that's kind of cool too, because, as you do projects, there's a lot of document exchange, cut out for dimensions, appliances, spec sheets on material grade. You can put your entire architectural spec sheet right inside the document manager. So as they open up this project and I look at that sales order right there, every document that's associated with it, everybody in your organization that has access rights can see it. So it makes it real easy to have one central place to store your documents. It also has, we talked about alerts where it can set up alert triggers automatically, but now I've got a place that I can look at all the different alerts that I set up. I can click on any audit log and configure it and say, hey, what do I really want to do with that? Do I want to change who gets the alert? Do I want to modify the message? So I can have dozens or thousands, it doesn't really matter. But the things that are important to me is when I do things like, for example, I'm going to order a special material, and I want to do a quote. Whenever I'm managing my quote, I need a quote on that material. I'm going to send that quote out, and here's my RFQ. And then I'm going to let the system automatically ping them every 24 hours. Where's my quote? After 72 hours, the third message will be, I'm sending it to another vendor. I don't have to remember to do it. I don't have to stop the messages. Once the vendor replies with a quote, the messages stop automatically. So real powerful tools just to make our lives easier. It also, of course, has a full dashboard, so you can look at all your projects, you can look at your leads, you can look at everything that you're doing in there, see your status by project if you want to, how many opportunities were lost or won. So full dashboard capability, and then of course the one thing I kind of glossed over, I want to show you too. Even in your projects, if I'm looking at my factory, I look at the different ways do I want to look at this project. Here's all the project phases I'm going through, who's they're assigned to, how many hours did I allocate? And I can say, well, I also want to know the hours initially planned, total hours. I want to know the deadline dates. And so now I can see more information and I can sort it and manipulate it. So at a glance, I can look at my data. I can look at charts and Gantt charts and say, hey, here's all my different projects. Here's my start duration and end duration. And if I drag that or extend the duration, just like this, you can automatically adjust the task automatically. So once again, it's presenting data the way you want to see it, Sean. And it really makes no difference how that is. We have dozens of options, but if you like 13, we can create that too. It's just a matter of what's important to you. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And for those that are viewing the webcast today, if you're looking to do better in your business and you recognize that maybe there's some areas where you have islands of information, maybe redundant processes, maybe things that are unautomated, what I just want to say and encourage you is this was, again, meant to be educational, not a sales presentation like, can I buy that? What it means is if you want to do better, reach out to us and let us know, and let's spend a little bit of time together and let's talk about your needs. What would help you do better? But hopefully you're seeing from the great presentation that Terry is doing is that the technology itself can be configured custom for you, and it can do a lot for your business and to get everybody on the same page. I doubt there's anyone on this webcast today that would say that their company does a perfect job with communication. While this doesn't solve every imaginable thing, I believe for sure. It's got some amazing features that would help companies that are needing to manage projects.
I agree. You know, one thing I'm kind of monitoring the question log. I have a question pop up I'd like to just throw at you, if that's okay.
Sure.
The question is, can we import data? Bob, I appreciate that question, but we showed the example of importing a spreadsheet into a quote. Does it import anything else, John? Or do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, so for sure, it's set up already working with customers that are importing software technologies such as Cabinet Vision and Microvellum, but don't let a certain number of pre-existing links stop you from investigating the technology. We'll help and do that work for you to discover what data source you might have and what's the easiest way to click a button and to be able to have that information inside of project.
You're exactly correct. And a great example is they've got 50 contacts in a spreadsheet, and this is the people they work with every day. I want to get them into projects. We just simply write a mapping routine and bring them in. But we bring in exactly what they give us. So that means data integrity, pretty important.
For sure.
The next question is, I think we covered this. Do we need to customize? And I'll take that one if you don't mind, Sean. Is a lot of people we sell projects to live with it just exactly like it is. They do about 3 or 4 custom reports, done. That's it. And so they want their logo on it, but they don't really care the look and feel of how it is, the fonts. They just want it to be from them. Very simple, easy process. They're up and running in short order. We have other people that really care about everything. And, that Gantt chart showing blue and in a certain font, they want it to be gray and they want it to be a different font. They want everything color coded. We can do anything they want to do, once again, as long as they have a vision of what they want to do and they're willing to invest the time, the money, and the effort to work with us to get there. But it takes those 3 components to do it.
Makes sense.
Make sense?
Yep.
This is an interesting question because I've had this discussion a lot of times. Usually it's one-on-one, but I'd love your opinion about this. But the question basically is from John. What's the difference in, when you have a problem in your factory, throwing automation versus labor? And I'd love your opinion on that, Sean.
Well, I'll take you back a little bit in my history. I remember when I was selling CNC machines in the early 1990s that I would go to a company and tell them about what it could do. And it was revolutionary. And for some of them, it took a while for them to adopt to automation. However, I never had anyone, and I did ask this a number of times, companies have been running CNC for some amount of time, and I've came in before and said, hey, if I gave you 100% of what you invested in that CNC with the understanding that you would go back to the way that you were building before, and there was none. There was many that would laugh about it and say, we would close our doors if we ever had to go back to that. We didn't know it was bad, but now that we've done it this way, and I think the same kind of thing holds true with project. You have been living in the world that you're living in, and you don't know what the difference is. However, when you have these kinds of tools and automation, improved communication, and better data to help you manage your business, you'd never want to do it another way.
And I think that's a great example of it, Sean, and I 100% agree. The thing about, there's some things you have to throw labor at. The tools and the technology doesn't exist. They used to have to, like in the manufacturing assembly lines, the they'd install robots, and robots would do the simple tasks. But if it got very complex, they still had to have a human check it, do that final step to make it work. But it doesn't really, it's not really about replacing labor with technology. It's really about making the most of the labor you have. So if I have my project manager managing a project and he has to do 15 steps and he has to remember 5 things every day to follow up on this, if I can eliminate 3 of those 5, that makes his life better. It's less complicated. It ensures somebody else is doing it. Now the question is, who's the somebody? If it's another person, financially the company hasn't gained. If it's software automation or even machinery automation, then it's a redundant process that you invest once, it pays for it forever. So that's the real key is when you think of automation, whether it's software or hardware automation, it's really about making the most of human capital every day, making their lives as good as you possibly can so they can work smarter, have the data in front of them so they can work without having to go chase it. One last thing I'll mention on that subject I think is kind of interesting. Remember back when computers first came out, I used to always compare them to a filing cabinet. You could go over to your old filing cabinet, pull out the files, and go searching for paper. Well, the computer would just beat it hands down. I could search and there it is. But now, 30 years later, that computer filing cabinet's got huge. There's all kinds of things in there, but it still beats it hands down. If I need a document, I might take, instead of a split second, it might take me a second and a half, but I can find that document. If I had them in a whole room full of filing cabinets, I'd be there all day long. So software automation is just an incredible tool. But last question I have on here is, if you, when you think of automation versus labor, is there an example that you might have that where the automation actually made it worse? That just didn't do what was intended?
So I think for sure there's in our industry a fair amount of what I think of as shelfware. People made an investment, they thought it was going to do something for their business. Maybe they didn't research it properly. Maybe the salesperson didn't identify their problems and make sure it was a fit. Or maybe even though they had the right technology, they didn't have the right mindset for implementation. And that's really the risk that you have. However, if you follow the recipe that we provide for you, that we really need to go through some processes to identify ways that you could do better and to make sure that we're covering all the gaps, that we're not leaving islands of information, and we do that work ahead of time, then you can be really confident about your purchasing decision. And I believe that when you can have that level of confidence in your purchasing decision and you're aware of what is going to be out in front of you, what effort do you have to make, what staff resources might you have to apply, what expenses might you need to cover to get customized for what you want, then it becomes a super easy decision. Back in the day, just kind of going back since you took me there in my brain today, which I'm not normally living in the past so much, but it used to be a pretty easy statement for selling CNCs back in the day. It was like, it's going to cost you monthly about what an employee does, but it's going to displace about 4 guys. And so it was pretty easy in the math to go, wow, I buy this once, and now I've recovered the labor from 3 guys, but it really wasn't that. I recovered the labor from them year 1 and year 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And for lots of these guys, I was in a shop not too long ago that I sold them a CNC machine in like 1995 that they're still running in their factory. The same holds true software, except for electro spindles don't wear out, your drills don't get fatigued and become loose and inaccurate, and software can stay up to date and modern and actually change and adapt with what you're doing. So one of the greatest investments, the best ROI that I can imagine, is software technology to help you in your business do better.
You know, I'd like to just add one thing about that. You know, where I see automation, I wouldn't use the word failing, but limiting, is whenever you have 5 departments and each department's running their own little version of software. It could be Excel, it could be whatever it is, but they become their own empire in their group, and they're doing all this wonderful thing in their group, but the other guys have no idea what's going on. And then it becomes counterproductive because they can't talk and they can't see. Then you find human capital transmitting that data manually the hard way. That's where I see the biggest challenge. And the last thing I would mention, and you touched on it, was about change management. A lot of people think that's not a big issue, but to us, it's one of the biggest issues. If ownership in the company and management embrace change, it's not an option, it's a way of life. And every successful company changes and modifies and stays on top of the competition, stays on cutting edge technology. The old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, they go out of business because everything's broke. Everything needs fixing. And when you fix this, it moves to the next bottleneck, into the next and the next. So embrace change management as a way of life. And in order to do that from the leadership down, it's how do we make our company better? There's always ways. It may be a little better, maybe a lot better, but let's strive for better. It works every time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's all the questions, and that's everything we went through the project. Any other questions for me, Sean?
Yeah, so I just was going to say that I'm really blessed, and I'm thankful that you joined us today and did such a great job helping us understand more about Project and what it can do to help customers. To me, it's more than project management. You know, when you look at the totality of what you saw today, there's a lot of business intelligence. There's amazing dashboards. There's CRM. There's estimation. There's sales. There's tasks. There's documentation. There's a lot that I believe for all of us to be absorbing and figuring out how to apply to our businesses to do better. So thank you, Terry, for spending your time with us today. And for all of those of you who attended today, I really, really want to thank you and just congratulate you for working on your business and not just in your business. It's easy to be busy. We're wearing multiple hats. We have crazy deadlines. We're balancing quality of life and dealing with a lot of factors in these days and times. And so congratulations for doing that. Please do check out RSA Solutions for future webcasts or we're beginning to do live events, factory tours, and lunch and learns here in 2022. So please stay tuned. Again, thank you, everyone. Appreciate so much your time and today. And I just want to say, take care and God bless.
Thank you, Sean. Take care, everyone.